This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth, for competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty, for the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. As usual, we have a great show. We're going to actually have Ben Stein on later. He's a good friend of mine from Hollywood. Of course, he's a conservative. He's not your typical Hollywood type. But Ben's going to be talking about what looks to be a near beginning of a crash in the stock market. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the uncertainty that's being caused by what's been going on in Washington with regard to the investigations of Russian collusion, with regard to the increase in interest rates by the Federal Reserve and other factors. But I think there's a lot of instability here because although the Republicans are putting up a good game, you know, they're creating a great appearance, they're going on Hannity, they're going on other shows on various cable networks. The fact is, the people know that nothing has ever been accomplished by the Republican establishment, that no matter how much they uncover in investigations, and that occurred in the 1990s as well at the Government Oversight and Reform Committee under Chairman Dan Burton at the time. It took me at Judicial Watch to really get the job done and get the ball rolling. But, of course, we didn't have prosecutorial powers, you know, and the Justice Department then was, of course, controlled by the Clinton administration. And years later, we had a Justice Department controlled by George W. Bush, and he became friends with the Clintons within hours of becoming president. Here's a guy that's been taking shots at President Trump lately and saying there is Russian collusion. Well, and that there was meddling in the election. I would say if there was meddling, it was probably with George W. Bush's brain. I don't even think he knew what to do as president. They create such a mess that we wound up with Barack Obama, which we know the disaster of the last 8 years in that regard. But getting back to the issue here is that although what Chairman Nunes has done on the House Intel Committee in creating this memorandum showing that the Fusion GPS Christopher Steele dossier on President Trump was a fraud, that was put forward by then U.S. Attorney Rod Rosenstein, now the U.S. Deputy Attorney General under another inert Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, that this was put forward fraudulently to get wiretaps on Trump and the people around him, and he released a memo in that regard. Don't expect anything to happen up on Capitol Hill. It's just not going to happen. And, of course, Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, he's under investigation himself for alleged Russian collusion. He's under investigation in the firing of James Comey for alleged obstruction of justice. And Robert Mueller continues along like the Energizer Bunny, untouched. The only one who has actually tried to stop him is yours truly. We have lawsuits that are pending on behalf of Freedom Watch in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, as I've talked about before. Not just because he's leaked information illegally and criminally from grand juries, and he should be thrown out on that basis alone, and his investigation should be stopped and halted in its tracks, but also because he's exceeded his authority, his mandate to be special counsel, and that you can see that very well and clearly with the indictment of Paul Manafort and his partner Rick Gates. Their acts, which they're accused of having violated criminal laws, didn't even fall within Russian collusion or obstruction of justice. They just conjured this up because Mueller is trying to indict people that were in and around President Trump, and of course Manafort was his campaign chairman for a while, because they want to force these people into testifying falsely that Trump rigged the election with the Russians and obstructed justice. Same is true for General Mike Flynn. They're trying to get him to commit perjury. These men are not going to do that because these men are patriots. At least I know that Flynn is. And it's very unlikely that they get flipped by Mueller. But Mueller continues on. And, of course, he's got this chorus of left-wing media. It's CNN, a totally dishonest entity. I call it no longer the Clinton News Network. It's the Communist News Network. I can have a few worse acronymic names if I gave it some thought. And you've got MSNBC, you've got the Washington Post, you've got the New York Times. So there's this cacophony on the left, this tirade on the left, that along with Mueller, because he feeds them every day through these illegal leaks, are attempting to destroy the President of the United States and everyone around him, and therefore take away our vote, who voted for President Trump, and take away our chance to turn this country into a great nation again. And if Trump fails, the last President Obama will be a warm-up act compared to what we get next, believe me. And this is what we face right now with Mueller, and this is why I'm doing whatever I can to take him out legally. And I hope the people will go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org, freedomwatchusa.org. Sign the petition. Support us financially. We need to ramp up. We need more lawyers. We need more paralegals. We need to go into high gear to take Mueller out legally. It must be done. And despite the commendable work of Chairman Nunes on the House Intel Committee with regard to this Fusion GPS Christopher Steele dossier, which was used illegally by the FBI and others to get wiretaps on the Trump Tower, which was used illegally to try to justify Mueller's existence as special counsel to investigate Trump and people around him, we have Republicans such as Trey Gowdy and Paul Ryan, the establishment, and, of course, John McCain, the ever angry and nasty John McCain, saying that, in fact, this dossier has nothing to do with the Mueller investigation. Well, it has everything to do with it. That was the fruit of the poisonous tree. That's why this bogus special counsel investigation was started in the first place. And Gowdy and Ryan say they have confidence in Mueller, and they think he's going to be a fair man and do a great job, and he's a man of integrity. Well, you know what? They're not men of integrity. Trey Gowdy, he has a great delivery, but it's a fraud. Gowdy was on the subcommittee of the House Oversight and Reform Committee that investigated Benghazi. He took a dive and exonerated Hillary Clinton. Ryan is always playing the two-faced game with Trump, claiming that he supports him and then stabbing him in the back, the Speaker of the House. Well, Gowdy's leaving. Gowdy's going back into private practice. He says he doesn't want to be a congressman anymore. He's giving up his chairmanship of the Government Reform and Oversight Committee. Why is he doing that? Because he's going to make a lot of money. He's going to go with a fat cat Washington, D.C. law firm that represents Democrats and Republicans. He doesn't want to alienate Mueller because Mueller is part of that establishment. He's, in fact, working with the Justice Department. He's part of the Justice Department. And he's going to have clients that are going to come up against individuals at the Justice Department who support taking down President Trump. 97% of the lawyers at the Justice Department voted for Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or contributed to their campaigns. So when you see Trey Gowdy on TV, he's just doing a dog and pony show. And, of course, we know Paul Ryan, two-faced little twit that he is. He looks like Eddie Munster. I mean, he should be on a TV series, a rerun of The Munsters. But this guy's not serious. And just in the last few hours, they rammed through $1 trillion addition to our debt to keep the government up and operating. This guy's no conservative. He's no Trumpian. He's a total political hack. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a Republican establishment that makes a lot of noise, that conducts hearings, that gets their face on Fox News. They get to do fundraising off of that. They get to be reelected, they hope, on top of that. But when push comes to shove, they have never, ever obtained justice for anyone. And, of course, this week we see Eric Holder out there saying he may run for president. What did they do with Holder? They held him in contempt over Fast and Furious, but they never followed up on it to have him criminally prosecuted or to do anything that might hold anybody accountable. So that is why you need a Freedom Watch. We are your Justice Department. You don't have a Justice Department. This Justice Department is a department of injustice. In fact, under the Obama administration, it's become a criminal enterprise. And, of course, Jeff Sessions won't do anything about it. He just sits there twiddling his thumbs. I don't know what he's doing up there. But it's not being Attorney General. So this is why you need Judicial Watch. It's why I need to be appointed special counsel. We need to put the pressure on. We've got 15,000 signatures so far. We need 100,000 signatures. And we need to show President Trump that he needs to put his foot down and have Larry Klayman appointed special counsel, because I'm not beholden to any establishment. The National Journal years ago, a liberal publication, said the thing that exasperates people about Larry Klayman and why Washington fears him is because he has no establishment credentials and therefore has none to protect. I will pledge my sacred honor, whatever fortune I have, and believe me, I don't have a fortune, and I will risk my life to have this country go back to the founding principles of George Washington, of Thomas Jefferson, of Benjamin Franklin in my native of Philadelphia, and hail the Eagles, by the way. I was always an Eagles fan, and thank God they won over a corrupt Patriot team that has cheated every step of the way. But I'm not going to allow our politicians, our judges, and our lawyers to cheat any more than the Eagles allowed the Patriots to get through another Super Bowl with slick tricks and unethical acts. We're going to take these people out legally, and I need your help. And that's why I'm saying, and I urge you, I beg you, go to freedomwatchusa.org. freedomwatchusa.org. Sign that petition. Contribute to us. I have advertisements out there trying to hire more lawyers, more paralegals, ramping up. Because if we don't do it, no one else will. And this Republican establishment just raised the debt ceiling by $1 trillion after they pledged to the American people that they would never do that we're going bankrupt. And that is why you cannot trust them. They are the flip side of the Democrat coin. Yes, the Democrats are socialists, communists, atheists, radical feminists, radical blacks, radical Muslims, you name it. These people are pure evil in today's world. But the Republican establishment also are a bunch of phonies. And we need to then step up to the plate to ourselves, and we need to hit that home run ourselves. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, freedomwatchusa.org, sign the petition, because when I'm special counsel, I'll not only take care of Mueller, I'll prosecute the Clintons, and I'll put them in prison where the sun don't shine anymore. We'll be right back with more of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
Dangerous.
You don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now let's do the next segue of our Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, who is, frankly, probably the most worthless Attorney General in my lifetime. Worthless is a good term compared to some of the Attorney Generals that came under Clinton and Obama. But worthless is worthless. 0 plus 0 equals 0. This guy's a zero, unfortunately. Very nice man. Will be very polite to you when you meet him. He's a Southern gentleman. But unfortunately, he doesn't have the fortitude of previous Southerners in American history that fought for what they believed was right. Let's talk about the Bundy case, because there have been developments this week in the Bundy case. That's Klayman Bundy and the aftermath of the successful standoff at Bunkerville. We know that Judge Gloria Navarro, hand-picked judge of the corrupt Senator Harry Reid, nominated by Obama, was presiding over various trials involving what happened in Bunkerville in the spring of 2014, where a paramilitary raid was conducted on the Bundy ranch to try to force them off, to take their cattle, to kill their cattle, to threaten their lives if they didn't leave, because Harry Reid wanted to sell the land out from under him, and he had Obama and his hand-picked hack at the Bureau of Land Management, Neil Corntz, do his bidding for him. Obviously, Harry was intending to get kickbacks on the sale of federal land. That's the way it works in Las Vegas, Nevada, mafia town. Harry is the hand-picked stooge of the mafia in Las Vegas. Now, what happened after that, after 2 years of Klayman being in prison, Klayman Bundy, my client, and the Bundy sons and others, 15 others, for 2 years without being convicted, finally, we uncovered when Klayman's trial began that there was massive prosecutorial misconduct. Documents were shredded. They were hidden. There were snipers that came out to the ranch long before anything happened. They were trying to set the Bundys up. I can go on and on. You know it. We've gone through this in prior shows. And Judge Navarro, to save her own skin, because she had rubber-stamped everything that the prosecution had wanted, these corrupt U.S. attorneys in Las Vegas, Nevada, Obama holdovers, she was forced to dismiss the indictment with prejudice. After that, I filed a case in state court in Nevada to have the land declared owned by the people of Nevada, not by the federal government, to keep the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, from coming back, because that would be a trespass. They don't have any jurisdiction in that event. That case is pending and will go forward. But this week, we find out that the same prosecutors that Judge Navarro was forced to declare to be unethical and dishonest and having engaged in flagrant prosecutorial misconduct came back and filed a motion for reconsideration trying to have Navarro agree to vacate her prior order dismissing the superseding indictment with prejudice that she had previously ordered dismissed. Now, it tells you something about Jeff Sessions. It tells you he's not a man of integrity. He says he was conducting an investigation into the prosecutorial misconduct. But how can he then allow his Obama holdover prosecutors in Las Vegas, Nevada, to ask Navarro to reverse everything before he even completes his review? Tells you something about our Justice Department and why you need a Freedom Watch. We're your Justice Department. And on top of that, at the same time that the prosecutors are asking for reconsideration, and we'll deal with it. I've got ways to deal with that. It's not going to be reconsidered. I can guarantee that. But it just shows you the dishonesty of this Justice Department, which has become a criminal enterprise. But in addition to that, the Obama holdover prosecutors, working under the authority of Attorney General Jeff Sessions, asked that the last group of defendants, which were never tried, which were still supposed to go to trial at the end of February, that their superseding indictment be dismissed with prejudice. Something diametrically opposed to what they're saying to reconsider the dismissal of the superseding indictment with prejudice with regard to Klayman and his two sons, Ammon, Ryan, and another defendant, Ryan Payne. Justice Department talking out of both sides of its mouth. Now, I suspect that the prosecutors filed this because they want to get Navarro to weaken her finding that they had flagrantly and outrageously conducted prosecutorial misconduct. This will cost them their law license ultimately. It's virtually impossible to fire someone in the federal government, including my alma mater, the Justice Department, but they'll be banished to a field office in Siberia, they think. So it was probably tactical, but still, why do you go through that game? Why do you create that emotional uncertainty in the mind of Klayman, Ammon, and Ryan, who were just let out of jail after 2 years of being kept in there illegally? And this tells you something about our Justice Department. It is indeed a criminal enterprise. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Sign the petition to have me named special counsel. I'll be the new Justice Department, and I will make sure that we bring the Clintons to justice, Mueller to justice, Obama, George Soros, and everybody else that collaborates with them. We'll be right back with Ben Stein.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
We're back with Ben Stein, my very good friend, a very intelligent individual, Harvard-trained, educated lawyer. Not Harvard, I'm sorry, I just insulted you. Yale-trained lawyer.
I don't ever say Harvard. I don't like Harvard.
I know. Well, I don't like it either for obvious reasons. It's ultra-leftist. But in any event, you are someone, Ben, who I have a great deal of admiration for. You're my friend. And you're an expert on economic matters. You even had a show called Ben Stein's Matter.
Many the time you and I have sat at dinner together and discussed the state of the world, and I certainly have enjoyed every time.
Well, thank you, mutually. I want to get your take on what's been going on in the stock market, because you are an expert in that. And I want the American people to understand, what the risks and rewards are, so to speak. We were on that show earlier in the week on Fox Business. And give us your take, Ben.
Okay. It's not going to be too brief, but it will be very interesting. In 1987, the fall of 1987, there was a tremendous drop in the New York Stock Exchange indexes, all the stock exchange indexes, There had been weakness for a couple of weeks beforehand, but then suddenly one day, wham, it lost almost a quarter of its value in just a few hours. And Ronald Reagan, God bless his soul, was president. And some reporter said to Mr. Reagan, "Why do you think it went down so much?" And Reagan said, "Well, I've heard people say it was too high." And I think that was the perfect explanation. My father, Herbert Stein, was a really, really famous, really, really, really well-trained economist. And he said he agreed with that. The market had just gotten ahead of itself. It was too damn high. Yes, we had prosperity. Yes, things were going great. But the market was just too damn high, and so it corrected very, very suddenly. At that time, there was something evil, something called portfolio insurance, which magnified the losses. But we don't need to go into that there because it's very complicated. But anyway, I think what's happened here is similar. Market's too high, corrected very quickly, but the underlying economy is super strong, and I don't think there's much danger of this being the beginning of another Great Depression or even a beginning of a serious recession. This is what would be called an epiphenomenon, a small phenomenon within a larger phenomenon. The market will trim back very substantially some of its enormous gains, but still will be way ahead of where we were the day that Mr. Trump took office. So we were still way ahead of that.
Do you think, Ben, that a fear that President Trump could wind up getting impeached if the Republicans lose the House, coupled with...
No, that has nothing to do with it at all. I don't think that... First of all, there's no chance of that happening whatsoever at all, period. The Constitution makes it virtually impossible. I think there'd have to be either a 3/4 or 2/3 majority against him. There's no chance of the Democrats getting that, although there are too many rhinos out there who would probably betray the president in a second if they had the chance. But this is not going to be a situation like that. This is going to be a situation where the market corrects for a while and then little by little clambers back up out of its hole and gets back. And will it take a year to get back to where it was? Will it take 2 years? Will it take 5 years? I don't know. What we do know, without any question at all, is that unless there's nuclear war, in which case all bets are off about everything, then we have a history, a long history, long history of the stock market performing almost all other investments. In fact, I would say all other investments that are available to the ordinary citizen. So I would say stocks for the long run, which is the title of a very famous book by a very smart investment guru, way, way smarter than I am. And so stocks for the long run, and I'd say now is an especially good time to buy. It's much better to buy when they're down than when they're up.
Do you think it's going to go down still further? Should people wait a little bit?
No idea. I have no idea whether it will go down still further. But if I were, we have a saying in the stock market, which is to say that a hold is the same as a buy. So if you hold on to your stocks, you're essentially buying stocks. And I am holding on to everything I have to hold on to, except when my son decides he needs some incredibly expensive something like a car or a house, and then I have to chip in and help him buy that. But other than that, I don't plan to do any selling.
What do you think the result's going to be? Will it have an impact that the establishment Republicans, establishment Democrats got together now to raise the debt ceiling about $1 trillion in the last few days, exacerbating our debt?
I think that might have some tiny effect, but I don't think so. I think basically it's just the traders in the market saying the market's gone up too high. It had reached a level of price times earnings, which was unheard of, and it was too high, and people said we can make money by selling it. And the way the market operates is the more people sell, the more it goes down. And the more it goes down, the more people can make money off it, so they keep selling, and a kind of snowball effect takes place, and the market just keeps tumbling down. But then it will stop. And then, for example, today it closed up very slightly, so at some point it will stop, and at some point it will start going up again in a big way.
Well, that's good to hear.
Well, it's good to hear if I'm right. I mean, look, there's never been a giant stock market crash when it wasn't precipitated by some enormous chain of events like the bank failures in the 1920s and early 30s, like the tremendous inflation we had in the 70s. There's no larger wave of events pushing down the stock market. It is the traders trading and seeing if they can make money by trading that is moving the stock market down. And that's perfectly reasonable. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that's the way markets operate, and there's not a damn thing wrong with that. So it's scary, but I mean, if you're too scared to watch the market fluctuate, you shouldn't be in the market in the first place. The problem with that is you then feel like chewing off your toes and your fingers when the market goes up a lot. So I'd say let's just let the market fluctuate, and it will fluctuate, and then it will eventually come back. J.P. Morgan has said, when he was asked about the future of the stock market at some point in the 19th or early 20th century, he said it will fluctuate, and that's what the market is doing. It's fluctuating, and that's standard.
Let me switch topics right now.
Please do.
You know, we see all of this activity on Capitol Hill with Chairman Devin Nunes of the House Intel Committee.
He's real hero, by the way.
Yeah, he's doing a commendable job. I just want him to go beyond the illegal wiretapping of President Trump and people around him into the mass illegal surveillance that's been going on against the American people for years. I enjoined the NSA, as you know, twice. We've talked about it, Ben. And I've tried to get him to listen to our whistleblower, Dennis Montgomery, who can show that even Supreme Court justices have been surveilled. I'm sure you have.
Well, now you know something. Now you're getting ahead of me because I don't know that story, so I wish you'd share that with me.
Next time we have dinner, we will.
Okay. Okay. Good.
But he's been on this show, and the viewers, the listeners know that. But I personally don't believe that with all the good work that Chairman Nunes is doing, that anything's going to happen unless we have a special counsel appointed. And of course, I think
we need a special counsel. There's no reason that the Democrats should have all the fun of having the special counsels, and we Republicans have to sit on our hands and not have special counsel. We need a special counsel. It's long past time to have a special counsel going after the Democrats on this illegal surveillance, on Hillary's destruction of evidence that had been sought by the Congress and by other branches of the government. There's no law in the Constitution that the special counsels have to use only against conservatives, and long past time for the conservatives to say, you know, we'd like to have some special counsels too. We did have a special counsel about the seducer, the arch seducer, Bill Clinton, and it worked out pretty well. So let's try another one this time about not about sex, but about betrayal of American national interest and its subversion of the entire government by the deep state. I mean, we're looking at a crisis here in terms of destruction of confidence in the society and in the government by the deep state and by the media, which is unprecedented.
I agree. But, you know, even when you go back to Clinton, and of course, I worked with Congressman Bob Barr at the time to get him impeached. It was never convicted in the Senate, and he was never indicted. Ken Starr walked away and just dumped it all on Congress.
I think he was indicted.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He lost his law license. That was about it.
Right. He was not indicted in a court of law, but if you're impeached by the vote of Congress, that's pretty much the same as indictment.
Well, but he's still roaming around free. So anyway, I propose this, Ben.
He's roaming around very, very free.
Give me your opinion. I've actually volunteered for the job of special counsel. I'd get the job done, and I'd put them in prison where the sun don't shine. And on top of that, I'd have them, Bill and Hill, occupy the same jail cell along with Obama and lovely Michelle at the same time.
Well, Michelle, I don't know what Michelle has to do with any of it, to tell you the truth. And frankly, I'm not sure what Mr. Obama has to do with it, although I think we're now learning that he lied his head off about how much involvement he had in FBI surveillance of Americans. I mean, the extent to which this guy is able to tell lies and get away with it and have nobody go after him is just astonishing. It's just astonishing how he has this. You know, we used to have, well, I'm not from New York, but there used to be in New York a guy called the Teflon Don, John Gotti, and I think we had the Teflon president in terms of Mr. Trump, Mr. Obama, and he could just get away with any
well,
kind
in
of
today's
murder he
world,
wanted to get away with.
Ben, you just have to call people racist that are coming after you, and you get to walk off scot-free.
Yes, now you're bringing up another subject, which is, it used to be that you would call people communists, and you could kind of shut them up, but now you call people racist, and that's just insane. I mean, the idea of calling Trump a racist is just crazy. There's never been the slightest hint of racism coming out of his lips.
No, I mean, he actually, in that sense, in a social sense, he's not a conservative, and gay people think that he's anti-gay. He's not anti-gay.
He's not the slightest bit anti-gay. I mean, he's not the slightest bit anti-gay. Where that accusation came from, I have no idea, except that, as you correctly point out, what the left does when they've got somebody, one of their own, who's in trouble, is say, okay, the people accusing him are A, racist, B, homophobic, C, criminals, D, white, and E, rich. And
let's not add, next segue, anti-feminist, anti-woman, okay?
Yes,
because
that where that comes from, I have no idea whatsoever. I mean, this whole idea that somehow the Republicans are connected with Harvey Weinstein is just crazy. Harvey Weinstein was a huge Democrat donor and fundraiser, and if you're going to say a political party is connected with abuse of women, the only party that could be would be, I'm afraid, the Democrat Party.
Well, we know that, but what's really unfortunate today is that I call them the Salem witch trials, is that there are women out there.
They are the Salem witch trials. They are exactly the Salem witch trials. They are. You're too young to remember that, but I do remember. No, I'm kidding.
You got off the Mayflower.
The Salem witch trials are depicted brilliantly in a play called The Crucible by Arthur Mueller, himself a left-winger but a brilliant writer, in which they talk about how easy it is to get somebody's life ruined just by making accusations. And boy, is that ever true about these sex accusations. Well,
the latest one is Rob Porter in the White House, and Hope Hicks, his girlfriend. And
that's a story that's
developing.
That's developing, and I think Mr. Trump did a great service to the cause of law and order today by saying, let's let the guy have a trial, let's let everything be played out in a court of law.
Well, he knows because they tried the same thing against him. But anyway, Ben, I want to thank you for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
You're dear to my heart.
I enjoy very much our conversations in person, where we can not only share all these ideas and thoughts and observations, but also share sushi and sashimi.
Yeah, and load up on mercury because, hey.
Yes, well, there's not enough mercury in all the sushi in California to hurt me. Anyway, God bless you, and let's get together very soon.
Look forward to it, and take care. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, and we're going to have a great finale here. The verdict is coming up.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
We ended the segment with my good friend Ben Stein talking about the Salem witch trials. Now, this fella, Porter in the White House with Hope Hicks, I mean, this is the most despicable display of radical feminism that I've seen yet. The guy has not been proven to do anything wrong. Apparently, he was very well respected in the White House, and they come up with a photograph with allegedly he took of his former wife with a black eye. Now, he just happens to be dating Hope Hicks, as a very attractive communications director in the White House. She was a former model. Now, his ex-wife obviously is jealous. He was married more than once. The other one's probably jealous too. But why did they wait all these years? Why did they let this guy get ensconced in the White House? He's the right-hand man of the chief of staff, General Kelly. And why did they want to assassinate him? What do they get out of that? Even if it's true, what do they get out of it? And what they get out of it is revenge. And it's vicious. And in today's world, you're guilty until proven innocent when it comes to this Me Too movement. And that really gets under my skin. Yes, there are people who have abused their girlfriends and wives. There are wives that have abused their husbands. But it's only the woman who gets to make the accusation and walk off as if nothing happened, even if it's false. And that's an age-old story. It goes back to the Bible. Adam and Eve, Samson and Delilah. You can keep going on and on and on. It's time that everybody's treated equally, men and women. It's time that blacks and whites are treated equally. It's time that Muslims, Jews, and Christians are treated equally. It's time everybody has their say in this world and is able to express themselves without destroying people. And that's really what I'm trying to do with being named special counsel, to not just investigate and prosecute the Clintons and the Obamas and everybody around them, but also to have Mueller removed, because we need to bring back our system of justice to equal justice under the law, to due process, to renew the vision of our founding fathers, whether it's George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and going forward, Abraham Lincoln and others. Even there were some Democrats who believed in these things. Not anymore. That isn't the case. I'm nonpartisan, but I got to call it as I see it. The Democratic Party is out of control. It's become a bunch of leftist fascists, and it's unbelievable. This week, Adam Schiff, the guy who gets out on TV and attacks the president all the time, and Chairman Devin Nunes and everybody else in the Intel Committee is a complete hack. He's from West Hollywood. He should go back there, hang out in West Hollywood bars, because he's not doing much here in Washington, D.C., other than obstructing justice himself. And we find out this week, it's ironic that his daughter married the daughter of George Soros, a self-hating Jew. By the way, Adam Schiff is Jewish. How can you let your daughter marry the daughter of a self-hating Jew who collaborated with the Nazis, who took the property away from Jews going to their death in gas chambers and ovens in World War II? I mean, unbelievable. He can't be more persuasive with his daughter than he can be with the American people. It's unreal. So that's why it's very important that we have a restoration of the rule of law, of equal justice under the law, and that's why I want to get 100,000 signatures to show President Trump that I need to be appointed special counsel to finally get the job done, because Congress isn't going to do it. Nunes is doing some admirable things, but nobody's going to follow up on that. He doesn't even have the support of his other Republicans who are praising Mueller. Trey Gowdy said Mueller is doing a great job. He should continue on, that all this has nothing to do with whether he should continue, even though under false pretenses they started this bogus investigation of Donald Trump. Same thing with regard to Ryan. Same thing with regard to McCain. Same thing with regard to Lindsey Graham. So it's time that we, the American people, do it for ourselves, to rise up. So go to Freedom Watch USA, join our cause, become part of our citizens' army, contribute financially so we can hire more lawyers, so we can do more things, so we truly can be your Justice Department. Because as John Adams said, in the days leading up to the Declaration of Independence, without ethics, morality, and religion, it doesn't matter how many times you change your rulers or forms of government, you will not have a lasting liberty. And it was Thomas Jefferson who said the people will need to rise up every other generation and wage a revolution. We're doing that peacefully in the courts. We're doing that through the court of public opinion. We're doing that through peaceful protest. We're doing that in a lot of different ways. So join Freedom Watch. We're the only game in town. We do more than just get documents, which is primarily what my former group Judicial Watch does. We bring hard-hitting cases, and we need your help. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, sign our petition, contribute to our cause, and I'll be back next week with another great edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. God bless you.